G'day and welcome to Mark and Sam After Work. Today I want to do another video on shooting form. I've done several others, been through bits and pieces, but I've got a new little ingredient I want to bring to the equation. And I suppose I'll go a quick overview for people who don't know what I'm talking about. Shooting form is basically talking about your body interaction with your rifle. So your body position is your form we're talking about. It has more than just your body position because it's how your body connects to the rifle, and ultimately it also is about how your rifle's set up, so how your body can connect to the rifle. So those other videos on that side of things. What we're actually describing, what we're actually doing this for, is that the physics of how a rifle works or a firearm works is that the rifle actually moves while the projectile is leaving it. So it starts to move backwards and it starts to move in how it's being influenced prior to the projectile leaving it. For those people who aren't convinced of that, there's a couple of situations you've probably already seen where this actually happens. One is if you have a rifle set up perfectly on the bench, let's say, and you've been shooting there for a while, you have it perfectly zeroed, and then you go and shoot it from a prone position or shoot it from some other position. You find that that point of impact shifts. It's all of a sudden an inch away from where it was, or 2 inches away from where it was. Not always the case, but quite common. That is actually talking about the dynamics of that rifle movement, which is influenced by your form, but it's actually, there's a change in how the rifle was set up and how it's fired, and there's a change in its impact position. The other place it's very common to see is a rifle that's been set up perfectly. It's dialed in, it's right on, and you take that shooter off and put a different shooter on, and it moves to a different position. And people will say, oh, the scope wasn't set up for me, presuming that it's a scope thing. Listen, as much as you adjust in the scope to get it back to where it should be, it isn't a scope thing. A perfectly parallax scope is pointing to the right place. What's different is the rifle behavior to the different human that's on behind there. And I suppose then you'd ask why that matters, because let's say that is the case. Why does that matter? Well, it matters if the rifle's moving to causing a different point of impact, then it's how much it moves changes how big your group is. If it's moving a little bit, it goes to here. It moves a lot, it goes to there. And if the human is controlling that amount of movement, then humans aren't completely consistent. No matter how much we try, we haven't got a micro-millisecond clock inside us. Our timing, our preload, everything changes, so our group gets larger because of that rifle, because of that movement of that rifle. So the fundamental concept of what I'm up to is the more consistent I can make that movement, the less the rifle is bucking or weaving or twisting or whatever it's doing, the more consistent it's going to be, because even though the human is still a human, by keeping that movement less, the consistency will be higher. So that's the simple logic of where we're at. The next bit of that logic is it is my style of shooting, which is what I'm talking about, which is a far more field friendly, paddock friendly, bush friendly nature of for shooting. I suppose tactical would be a way to put it, but it means on a piece of dirt of a random nature with a bipod and a bag on the back of it. But I'm not talking about the F-class style of things with skid pads and big rigid bipods, and I'm not talking about the front rests and all the different types of extreme target shooting where the front of the rifle and the rear of the rifle with very heavy rigid bags are very controlled to where it's more of a railgun side of things, which has less human influence, not quite as flexible to set up. I believe it makes the rifle do more things versus our style, which is a little more, well, like I said, tactical, but it's more a case of asking the shooter or the shooter's got more control on the steering wheel, but that means we also can mess it up more, which means our shooting form becomes even more important. Not to say shooting form's not very, very important everywhere, but it is super important in what we're doing. So that's the fundamentals of what I'm at. The next details, or what I'm actually trying to get into, is I go and analyze that in different forms, and it certainly helps some people sort some things out. And that the couple of basic ways to analyze this pretty thoroughly is one, your sight picture and what your rifle does. If it constantly is going up in the air and you need to reset everything because it's jumping, then that's an obvious thing. If it's constantly way over to the left or way over to the right, that's an obvious thing. And that means you shoot, and when you go back on target again, you move your rifle across, it's obviously moving. There's something going on, and that will be part of analysing things. The way I probably most like to analyse it myself is by video footage, to actually have a look, have a video, and I recommend that to people as well. If you're trying to set up a rifle, you don't know what's going on. If nothing else, get a mate with your iPhone, or a GoPro, or whatever it is, something to the side, and just see what your rifle's doing. Slow motion is a nice way to look at it, and it'll tell you things about what's going on. I suppose a couple of keys I'll tell you there where it gets a little more confusing, and a good comparison actually is between the more rigid style of my shooting, which isn't rigid by nature. I'm not muscling up and fighting things. It's more a case of I'm 100 kilo, 220 pound guy. I'm 6'4", and I'm not that flexible. That means that when a rifle comes back against me, it has more to bounce into. So you'll tend to see it come back, bang into me, and then do a wriggle forward. So there tends to be come back, it raises up, and then wriggle forward. That's because it's got this lump to push against. And if you put that into the likes of F-class, or the likes of something where you've got basically more of a free recoil style of shooting, where the rifle can come straight back, it'll just go straight back. Nice heavy rifles, they'll just go straight back. It makes them harder to diagnose in their world, other bits and pieces, but largely not dealing with the same bits and pieces. But like I said, probably not quite as flexible and not quite the same grip on the steering wheel. So, not trying to say either one's better or worse. This is a description about our form of shooting and to try and help with people with that. Another place that you can see this, one's lighter, one's easier, is actually between me and Sam. Sam, roughly half my size, half my weight, not quite as rigid. And if you watch the rifle shoot against her, you'll see that it definitely doesn't do as much at the end of things. It'll have the same beginning point of things because of the rifle setup and because she's shooting a very similar style, but it doesn't have that lump to hit so heavily, so it tends to look smoother overall. Now, the reason I describe that is not to get confused by the bounce of things and wibble at the end of it, because what we're talking about is that first, let's go with, ½ inch, I think is 5 times as much as we're talking about, but let's go with the first ½ inch of muzzle movement is what we want to be straight. So that's where I'm at in that. That's explained that side of it. What the video is actually about is because of the conditions we've had recently here, I haven't been able to get up and do the shooting I want to do. It's been wet, it's been rainy, largely it's cloudy, it's terrible vision, and we've got wet ground. What I thought of, and I had a little moment, break in the clouds, you couldn't even see properly our target. We could see it, but we couldn't video it. It had a cloud on it, or had heavy fog on it. But was to set up with a couple of rifles, to video with a drone on top to show a difference of a couple of types of shooting style. One is my normal shooting style, and if you have a look at it, I shoot off the collarbone, like I said, and really I don't have it going straight down through the middle of me. I really have the line of force going straight down through one leg. So it really goes down through here. Trying to go from a center over here, because I'm trying to use the bone structure of my body. The muscles and things want to be relaxed, and there's bits involved with that, but I'm really trying to use the bone structure. And if you think about our frame, it isn't actually going from our legs to our hips to our shoulders at all. It actually is a straight line in the middle with our backbone that goes out to our shoulders. So the more I go out, the load out to your shoulder, the more bends are going to be in there. So the closer into my collarbone, the less bend there's going to be. The more the sudden stop that rifle is going to hit, but it's a straighter line of push. But the one I went to was the extreme, which I see quite commonly, and that's people right over to the side with their leg up on the side. Not something I shoot like. It's not something I've ever tried to do, except for maybe when I was 10. But we're a bit more comfortable to lay on the ground like that, I suppose, but truthfully, the line of push is quite off. And you'll see there, you'll watch, I've got the images of doing the straight and doing the sideways. I suppose the fundamental thing is none of it, even when I'm dead straight, you see a wriggle in the rifle. There is a definite wriggle in the rifle that happens as it hits that sudden stop. I've got images of both sideways and then images on top. And then I've got the like I said, from my normal prone position to a sideways prone position. Now, I suppose at this stage I'd stop and say, doesn't matter if what you do and how you do it. If it works fine, leave it alone. Don't mess with it. But if you're trying to find extra accuracy, what my whole concept, my whole logic here is, the less I get that rifle to move, the more consistent I'll be. Because if the rifle is moving, if the muzzle's moving across or the buttstock is moving across a tiny bit, I'll see it at the, like I said, it's after things have left, you'll see the main result, but that same result started at the beginning, started before you can see it. So when I look at the sideways side of things, it's always something that's said to me is that, as you saw in those videos, when it's over on the side here and I'm coming to the side, which is sort of comfortable to get behind to a degree, but what actually happens is your shoulder bends back, which means there's a little less load on the rifle to start off with. Your shoulder bends back, but then it moves your whole shoulder, all your shoulders, your top, your head moves across. So you get this wriggle thing that happens from the hips. You'll see when I'm shooting in my normal position, there is basically, it comes straight back against me, and then there's a little wriggle after. There's still a wriggle happening. You can still see this little happening in things, but essentially the line of force is a lot closer to my backbone, so there's less twist going on there, and there's really nothing of it moving the shoulders across because of that side of things. So that's because my hips are behind me. It also goes into quickly for those people who constantly want to talk about the heels up or heels flat, all that sort of stuff. I go with comfort, and it works. The truth of the leg spread and heels out and that sort of stuff. If you're shooting on the side of a hill and you're worried about rolling over, yes, there's some advantages going that sort of stuff. If you're 45 kilos and a 17, 18-year-old light person, which is where this shooting style really came from, then yes, okay, they're trying to clamp to the ground. They're in all sorts of conditions. A small little GI, a small little soldier, where that shooting style came from. They're trying to give them an overall one-size-fits-all shooting style to fit everything. I say go with what works for you. For me, my legs straight behind me. They're a little bit spread, my heels are up in the air, but I don't have any issues. I also find it quite simple. When I want to wriggle around, as it happens when you're shooting, my toes are there ready to go, but then I'm in a relaxed form. My weight is in my gut, my hips, my thighs, they're the bit that are attached to the ground. And I say that works very well for me. I'm 100 kilos. My little missus is just about half my weight, and it works well for her too. So that's obviously in our setup, in our form, but that's what we go with. And in the shooting side of things, this form works the same. I suppose the summation of the thing is, I'm not trying to say there is a right way to do it. What I am trying to say is, consider all of it. These are images, those were put together images to show you a little bit of what's going on in places. And in this style of shooting, there is definitely going to be rifle movement. And I always go with trying to get it as little as possible. I look at the side of things, I can see that, the rifle might be going up and coming back down, and then I still get the same sight picture. But largely I want to keep those crosshairs on the target as much as possible. And I really want it to be very relaxed. The smoother I can get that to happen, the better. But I'm using the tactical style, whatever you want to call it. Tactical sounds, yeah, a bit that. I'm using the style where I can shoot in any form. So by shooting in any form, that means that I can get onto all sorts of dirt, that sort of stuff, and I'm trying to soak up harmonics. So I want that rifle, I want to soak up the shock. I want that rifle pushing hard against me. It doesn't hurt me, but pushing there with some proper force, because I want to try and absorb that. That's part of my style. Obviously, going to front rest and all that sort of stuff, going down where you're going down the railgun side of things, then your harmonics and things are much more what you have to deal with. Heavy rifles deal with a little bit, but that runs more into your load development, more into your barrel tuners, more into all that sort of stuff there, because you're actually asking the rifle to do everything, or do more for you. I really want to try and work with it more and be a little more flexible, and I suppose it's just the way I'm doing things. None of it's wrong, none of it's particularly right. No one can tell you how you should do it, but these are clues to try and help you get the best out of what you're doing. Anyway, guys, that's my video on today. Just another, like I said, another one. Really, it's about those images are about prone shooting, but this is relevant for any form. You can be standing on one leg with one eye closed and still how that rifle behaves in connect, or that handgun hands in connection to you, is relevant to your overall consistency. I'm not suggesting shoot with one eye with one leg in the air, but what I am saying is it really doesn't matter what the form is. These dynamics all work, and it's really understanding them. Anyway, guys, that's my video for today. I hope you enjoyed, and we'll catch you next time.